Meryl Streep isn't just an actress. To millions, she's the very definition of acting excellence itself. With a record 21 Oscar nominations and 3 wins spanning 5 decades, she's become synonymous with versatility and perfection. But behind that poised exterior and unmatched talent, industry insiders have long whispered about tensions, creative differences, and professional rivalries that shaped her legendary career. Today, as she reflects on her journey at 76, sources claim she's finally addressing the 6 fellow actors with whom she reportedly experienced the most friction throughout her storied career. Some names might not surprise you. Others, they'll challenge everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's most respected icon. Let's dive in and uncover the complex relationships behind the silver screen's greatest performances. Born Mary Louise Streep in Summit, New Jersey in 1949, Meryl's journey to becoming Hollywood royalty began far from the glitz of Los Angeles. The daughter of a pharmaceutical executive and commercial artist, she grew up in comfortable suburban surroundings that gave little indication of the extraordinary path that lay ahead. Those who knew her in her early years often recall her natural charisma and intelligence, but few could have predicted her rise to become arguably the greatest actress of her generation. Streep's formal training began at Vassar College, where she initially studied to become an interpreter before the stage called to her more powerfully. Her transition to Yale School of Drama would prove pivotal, laying the technical foundation for her meticulous approach to character work. It was during these formative years that Streep began developing her legendary ear for accents and her immersive approach to roles, qualities that would later set her apart in an industry often satisfied with less. Her breakthrough came with supporting roles in Julia and The Deer Hunter, but it was her heart-wrenching performance in Kramer vs. Kramer opposite Dustin Hoffman that earned her first Academy Award and announced her arrival as a formidable talent. Critics and audiences alike were captivated by her ability to bring complexity and depth to a character that could have easily been one-dimensional. The performance showcased what would become her signature, finding the humanity in every role, regardless of how flawed or complicated. By the time she delivered her tour de force performance in Sophie's Choice, complete with a flawless Polish accent and emotional depths that left audiences devastated, Streep had firmly established herself as an actor's actor. Her mastery of technique was undeniable, yet it never overshadowed the raw emotional truth she brought to each character. This remarkable balance would become her calling card. Throughout the 80s and 90s, while many of her contemporaries struggled to find meaningful roles as they aged, Streep continued to reinvent herself with challenging work in films, like Silkwood, Out of Africa, and The Bridges of Madison County. What set her apart wasn't just her talent, but her unwavering commitment to authenticity and her fearlessness in portraying complex, sometimes unlikable women. In an industry obsessed with likability, especially for female characters, this approach was nothing short of revolutionary. Even as she entered her 60s and 70s, when Hollywood typically discards actresses, Streep found some of her most commercially successful roles in films like The Devil Wears Prada, Mamma Mia, and The Iron Lady, proving that talent and skill could transcend Hollywood's ageist tendencies. Her ability to reinvent herself while maintaining the core qualities that made her exceptional is perhaps her greatest achievement. However, behind the accolades and the seemingly effortless grace lies a more complicated story. According to various industry sources and co-stars who have worked with Streep throughout the decades, her unyielding commitment to her craft has occasionally created tensions on set. While publicly maintaining a reputation for kindness and professionalism, insiders have suggested that Streep's perfectionism and intensely methodical approach to acting has sometimes put her at odds with colleagues who work differently. It's been reported that Streep's preparation process is exhaustive, researching characters for months, perfecting accents down to regional dialects, and immersing herself so completely in roles that the line between performer and performance occasionally blurs. This dedication, while producing remarkable results on screen, has allegedly created friction with directors and fellow actors who prefer more spontaneous or collaborative approaches. over her 5-decade career spanning more than 60 films. Sources close to productions claim that certain creative relationships proved particularly challenging. While Streep herself rarely speaks publicly about difficult professional experiences, preferring to focus on the positive aspects of her collaborations, industry insiders have long speculated about the 6 actors with whom she reportedly experienced the most significant creative differences or personal tensions. These alleged conflicts weren't simple personality clashes, but rather fundamental disagreements about approach, technique, and the very nature of acting itself. From method actors whose immersive techniques clashed with her more technical precision, to co-stars whose working styles created on-set tension, these 6 relationships reportedly tested even Streep's legendary professionalism and diplomatic nature. Let's count down the actors who, according to industry sources and behind-the-scenes accounts, represented the most challenging creative partnerships in Meryl Streep's illustrious career. Number 6. Dustin Hoffman, her Kramer vs. Kramer co-star and fellow acting titan, reportedly created one of the most notoriously tense sets in Hollywood history, due to fundamentally different approaches to the craft. When Meryl Streep and Dustin Hoffman were cast as the divorcing couple in 1979's Kramer vs. Kramer, they were at vastly different points in their careers. Hoffman was already an established star with The Graduate and Midnight Cowboy behind him, while Streep was an emerging talent transitioning from stage to screen. What should have been a perfect pairing of complementary talents reportedly became a masterclass in creative friction, beginning what industry insiders describe as a decades-long, cool relationship between 2 of Hollywood's most celebrated actors. According to multiple accounts from the set, including later interviews with director Robert Benton, the tension stemmed from fundamentally different approaches to the acting process. Hoffman, a devoted method actor, was known for remaining in character and pushing boundaries to achieve emotional authenticity. Streep, while equally committed to emotional truth, reportedly preferred a more technical approach that allowed her to separate herself from her character between takes. This philosophical divide allegedly created immediate friction during the film's most emotionally charged scenes. In one of the most discussed incidents from the production, Hoffman reportedly slapped Streep across the face before a particularly emotional scene without warning her beforehand, believing the shock would produce a more authentic reaction. According to production staff who were present, Streep was deeply disturbed by this tactic, viewing it as a violation of professional boundaries rather than a legitimate acting technique. While the resulting scene is undeniably powerful, those close to the production have suggested the incident created a permanent rift between the actors. On screen, their chemistry was electric, the pain and complicated history between their characters palpable in every frame. Critics and audiences marveled at how 2 people who seemingly despised each other could create such compelling and nuanced performances together. The film went on to win 5 Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Hoffman and Best Supporting Actress for Streep, cementing both their places in Hollywood history, while ironically binding them together forever in cinema lore. The public never saw the alleged tensions directly. In interviews promoting the film, both actors were consummate professionals, praising each other's talents and contributions to the project. Streep, in particular, rarely addressed the rumors directly, though in a 2018 interview, she cryptically remarked, "Sometimes the most difficult experiences produce the most beautiful art. That doesn't make them any less difficult." Fans and film historians have widely interpreted this as a reference to her experience on Kramer vs. Kramer for Streep. This experience reportedly became formative in how she approached future collaborations. According to those who worked with her in subsequent years, she became more assertive about establishing clear boundaries with co-stars and directors, insisting on a set environment that respected all performers' processes. This early career challenge helped shape her reputation as an actor who could be both collaborative and protective of her own creative approach. The alleged tension with Hoffman would follow both actors throughout their careers, with journalists frequently trying to bait them into commenting on their relationship during press tours for subsequent projects. Both generally deflected such questions, though eagle-eyed fans have noted that, despite their parallel trajectories in Hollywood, they have never again worked together on a project. Coincidence or conscious choice? You be the judge. Ready for the next complex relationship in Meryl's career? Number 5 might surprise you with how deeply personal it became. Number 5. Jeremy Irons, her co-star in The French Lieutenant's Woman, reportedly created tension through his intensely romantic approach to their scenes together, blurring the line between performance and reality in ways that made Streep uncomfortable. When Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons were cast as leads in the complex meta-narrative film The French Lieutenant's Woman in 1981, they seemed like the perfect pairing. Both were classically trained, technically brilliant actors known for their versatility and intelligence. Yet according to production insiders and later interviews with crew members, what transpired during filming was a classic case of art imitating life. Imitating art, as the boundaries between their on-screen and off-screen relationships reportedly became uncomfortably blurred. The film's structure was already complicated, telling parallel stories of Victorian-era forbidden lovers and the modern actors playing them in a film within the film, who begin their own affair. Sources close to the production claim that Irons, then an emerging British talent with a reputation for romantic intensity, approached the role with such conviction that he began treating Streep with the same passionate attention off-camera as on. According to assistant directors who worked on the production, Irons would reportedly remain in character between takes, continuing to gaze at Streep with the same longing and addressing her with intimate familiarity even when cameras weren't rolling. For Streep, who was married to sculptor Don Gummer and had a young child at home, this approach allegedly created significant discomfort. Those familiar with her working style note that Streep has always preferred a clear separation between her characters and her real self, a technique that allows her the emotional freedom to fully inhabit challenging roles without personal consequences. Irons' more immersive approach reportedly threatened this carefully maintained boundary. On screen, audiences witnessed extraordinary chemistry. Their forbidden Victorian romance quivers with repressed passion, and their modern-day affair feels dangerously authentic. Critics praise their performances, with many noting the palpable tension between them. The film earned 5 Academy Award nominations, including Best Actress for Streep, and cemented both actors' reputations as premier talents of their generation. Behind the scenes, however, crew members have suggested that Streep increasingly isolated herself from Irons when not filming. According to a makeup artist who worked closely with Streep, she would retreat to her trailer immediately after difficult scenes rather than engaging in the usual casual conversation with cast members. There was a definite coolness that developed, the source reportedly told a film historian years later. You could see her putting up walls that weren't there at the beginning of production. Fans noted that in subsequent press tours, while both actors spoke highly of each other's talents, there was a notable formality in their interactions that contrasted with Streep's warm rapport with other co-stars. In a rare moment of candor during a 1990s interview, when asked about challenging working relationships, Streep reportedly said, "Sometimes the most difficult thing is when someone else's approach to the work makes it hard for you to maintain your own process. It's not about right or wrong methods. It's about compatibility." This experience allegedly reinforced Streep's commitment to maintaining professional boundaries on set and influenced her selection of future projects. Those close to her career decisions have suggested that she became more careful about vetting potential co-stars, prioritizing those known for respecting personal and professional boundaries regardless of their acting method. The tension between artistic intimacy and personal boundaries would become a recurring theme in Streep's career. But the next actor on our list presented a completely different type of challenge. Are you ready to learn about number 4? Number 4. Jack Nicholson, her co-star in Heartburn and Ironweed, allegedly created friction through his improvisational style and offset partying that contrasted sharply with Streep's meticulous preparation and disciplined approach. When Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson first collaborated on Mike Nichols' Heartburn, in 1986, they seemed like the perfect pairing of 1970s Hollywood royalty. Nicholson was the charismatic rebel with an unmatched screen presence, while Streep was rapidly becoming the most acclaimed actress of her generation. Yet according to multiple crew members and later interviews with director Nichols himself, their working relationship was reportedly complicated by fundamentally different approaches to both acting and professionalism. Nicholson, famous for his devil-may-care attitude and improvisational genius, reportedly approached filming with a looseness that bordered on irreverence. According to production assistants who worked on Heartburn, he would frequently arrive on set having only glanced at the script, preferring to discover the scene in the moment rather than through careful preparation. This stood in stark contrast to Streep's methodical approach, which involved extensive research, memorization, and emotional preparation before the cameras ever rolled. Their first film together, Heartburn, was ironically about a deteriorating marriage, and sources close to the production claim that the tension between their contrasting styles occasionally spilled over into genuine frustration. In one often repeated story from the set, after Nicholson improvised several takes with completely different approaches, Streep reportedly asked director Mike Nichols, "Which Jack should I respond to?" The comment, while delivered with Streep's characteristic diplomacy, allegedly highlighted her growing frustration with the unpredictability of working with the legendary actor. Despite these creative differences, something about their on-screen chemistry was undeniably compelling. When they reunited the following year for the Depression-era drama Ironweed, many in the industry were surprised given the rumors of tension during their previous collaboration. According to the film's director, Hector Babenco, this second project presented even greater challenges as Nicholson's lifestyle during filming reportedly created additional friction. On screen, both Heartburn and Ironweed showcase two masters at work. The push and pull between Streep's precise emotional calibration and Nicholson's unpredictable energy created a fascinating dynamic that served both narratives well. Audiences and critics alike praised their performances, particularly in Ironweed, which earned both actors Oscar nominations. Behind the scenes, however, crew members have described an increasingly chilly relationship. According to a production coordinator who worked on Ironweed, Streep would prepare extensively for emotionally demanding scenes, only to have Nicholson sometimes arrive seeming unprepared or distracted. You could see her frustration, the source allegedly told a film journalist years later. She'd spent hours getting into the emotional space for a scene and then had to adapt to whatever energy he brought that day. Fans noticed that during press tours for both films, while respectful, the two stars rarely displayed the warmth or camaraderie often seen between co-stars who bonded during filming. In later interviews about working with various leading men, Streep has diplomatically avoided criticizing Nicholson directly, though she has occasionally made references to preferring co-stars whose preparation matches my own. For Streep, these experiences reportedly reinforced her commitment to professionalism and preparation, while perhaps giving her a greater appreciation for co-stars whose working methods complemented rather than challenged her own. Despite their differences, both actors have publicly acknowledged the quality of work they created together, suggesting that creative tension, while difficult, can sometimes yield extraordinary results. Are you curious about who's next on our list? Number 3 represents an entirely different kind of professional challenge, one that came much later in Streep's career and with an unexpected competitor. Number 3. Pierce Brosnan, her Mamma Mia co-star, reportedly created unexpected tension due to musical insecurities that affected production flow and required Streep to become an impromptu coach rather than an equal collaborator. When Meryl Streep signed on to star in the ABBA musical Mamma Mia in 2008, it represented a significant departure from the serious dramatic roles that had defined much of her career. At 59, she was embracing a joyful, singing and dancing romantic lead that showcased an entirely new side of her talents. Her leading man, Pierce Brosnan, fresh from his successful run as James Bond, seemed like perfect casting as the debonair potential father of Streep's character's daughter. Yet, according to production team members and later interviews with cast members, What should have been a breezy, fun collaboration reportedly became unexpectedly strained due to vastly different comfort levels with the musical demands of the project. Sources close to the production claim that while Streep approached the singing requirements with characteristic thoroughness, taking voice lessons and working diligently to adapt her technique to ABBA's challenging pop compositions, Brosnan reportedly struggled with his musical numbers, creating tension during rehearsals and recording sessions. According to a vocal coach who worked on the film, Brosnan's difficulties with the score allegedly led to scheduling complications and multiple re-recordings that affected the entire production flow. What complicated matters, according to those involved with the film, was Streep's natural inclination to help. Several cast members have suggested in subsequent interviews that Streep, who had previous musical experience from films like Postcards from the Edge, found herself in the awkward position of trying to assist Brosnan without undermining his confidence. She became almost a coach at times, one production assistant reportedly revealed, which wasn't her role and created an imbalance in their dynamic as romantic leads. On screen, audiences saw a joyful, sun-drenched romance with infectious energy and charm. The film became a massive commercial success, grossing over $600 million worldwide, with critics praising Streep's uninhibited performance, while generally being less kind to Brosnan's vocal contributions. In fact, Brosnan's singing in the film would become something of a running joke in popular culture, even earning him a Razzie Award nomination for Worst Supporting Actor. Behind the scenes, those working on the film have described an increasingly complicated relationship. According to a sound engineer who worked on post-production, Streep was unfailingly supportive of Brosnan in public, but privately expressed frustration that the musical imbalance between them affected the authenticity of their romantic connection on screen. She needed a partner who could match her energy in the musical numbers, the source allegedly told an entertainment reporter, and when that didn't happen, it created a disconnect she had to work twice as hard to overcome. Fans noticed that during the press tour, while the entire cast projected the film's fun-loving spirit, there was a subtle guardedness in interactions between Streep and Brosnan. When journalists inevitably asked about the singing aspects of the film, Streep would diplomatically praise everyone's efforts, while Brosnan often deflected with self-deprecating humor. The tension reportedly continued when they reunited for Mamma Mia! Here We Go Again in 2018, though both had significantly reduced roles in the sequel. Those involved with the second film noted that the two stars had minimal scenes together, which some speculated was a deliberate choice based on their previous experience. For Streep, this collaboration allegedly reinforced the importance of being matched with co-stars whose skills complemented her own across all aspects of performance. While she continued to speak fondly of the Mamma Mia experience in public, those close to her suggest it remains one of her more challenging professional relationships, not because of any personal animosity, but because of the fundamental imbalance in their performances that she worked tirelessly to disguise. Curious about who's next on our countdown? Number 2 represents a clash not just of acting styles, but of generations and approaches to fame itself. Number 2. Lindsay Lohan, her younger co-star in Prairie Home Companion, allegedly created tension through unprofessional behavior and erratic scheduling that tested Streep's legendary patience and professionalism during what would be Robert Altman's final film. When Robert Altman assembled the ensemble cast for what would be his final film, A Prairie Home Companion, in 2006, the pairing of Meryl Streep and Lindsay Lohan as mother and daughter seemed like inspired casting. Streep was the consummate professional with decades of acclaimed work behind her, while Lohan was the talented young actress transitioning from Disney stardom to more mature roles. According to production team members and later interviews with other cast members, however, this intergenerational pairing reportedly became one of the most challenging working relationships of Streep's career. Lohan, then 19, was at a pivotal point in her career and personal life. According to multiple sources from the set, including statements later made by other actors in the ensemble, her behavior during production was reportedly erratic and unprofessional. Assistant directors who worked on the film have claimed that Lohan frequently arrived late to set, was often unprepared and occasionally appeared distracted or exhausted during filming. For Streep, who famously arrives not just on time but early to sets, knowing all her lines and everyone else's, this approach to work allegedly created significant friction. What made the situation particularly challenging, according to those close to the production, was the mother-daughter dynamic they needed to portray on screen. Their characters required a believable bond and history, which necessitated a level of trust and connection that was reportedly difficult to establish given their different approaches to the work. According to a makeup artist who worked closely with both actresses, Streep made repeated efforts to mentor and connect with Lohan, viewing her not as a problem but as a young talent in need of guidance. On screen, despite the behind-the-scenes challenges, their performances were praised, with many critics noting the authentic feel of their complicated mother-daughter relationship. Streep, ever the professional, apparently found ways to channel any real-life frustration into her character, who was written as somewhat exasperated with her daughter's choices. The result was a performance of remarkable authenticity, though those who knew about the on-set dynamics have suggested it required less acting than might be apparent. Behind the scenes, the tension reportedly came to a head during a particularly important musical sequence. According to a sound technician who was present, Lohan's lack of preparation for a duet they were to perform together allegedly forced multiple retakes and nearly compromised the scene entirely. Witnesses claim that while Streep never lost her composure publicly, she was seen leaving the set visibly frustrated after filming wrapped for the day, a rare break in her usually unflappable demeanor. What complicated matters further was the fact that this was Robert Altman's final film before his death, a reality that the cast became increasingly aware of as production progressed. According to those who worked closely with Streep, she felt an enormous responsibility to help deliver a worthy final chapter to Altman's legendary career, and any behavior that jeopardized that goal reportedly deeply disturbed her. Fans and journalists noted that during the press tour for the film, Streep and Lohan were rarely photographed together, and interviews were carefully structured to keep them separate. When asked about working with Lohan, Streep was characteristically diplomatic, focusing on her young co-star's talent rather than any challenges they may have faced. Lindsay has an instinctive understanding of camera and character that you can't teach, Streep told one interviewer, showcasing her professional generosity even amid reported tension. For Streep, this experience allegedly reinforced the value she places on professionalism and preparation, while perhaps giving her a greater appreciation for the consistent work ethic she typically encountered among her contemporaries. Those close to her suggest it may have influenced her subsequent project choices, with a notable preference for working with directors and actors known for running disciplined, efficient sets. Are you ready for the final reveal? Number 1 on our list represents perhaps the most surprising and long-standing creative tension in Streep's illustrious career, one that has spanned decades and multiple films. Number 1. Robert De Niro, her co-star in films from The Deer Hunter to Falling in Love, reportedly created the most significant and enduring tension in Streep's career through fundamentally opposing approaches to acting that represented the classic clash between method intensity and technical precision. When Meryl Streep and Robert De Niro first shared the screen in Michael Cimino's 1978 epic The Deer Hunter, they represented two different approaches to acting that would define American cinema for decades to come. De Niro was already established as the premier method actor of his generation, famous for physically and psychologically transforming himself for roles. Streep, though early in her film career, was developing a reputation for her remarkable technical precision and emotional accessibility. According to crew members and later interviews with directors who worked with both actors, this philosophical divide reportedly created a persistent tension that would span their occasional collaborations over decades. The friction reportedly began during The Deer Hunter, where their contrasting techniques became immediately apparent. According to the film's assistant director, who later gave interviews about the production, De Niro maintained an intense, almost forbidding presence on set, remaining partially in character even between takes and rarely socializing with the cast. Streep, by contrast, could access deep emotion for a scene, then immediately step out of character, often lightening the mood for the crew. This fundamental difference allegedly created an unspoken competition between two emerging titans of American acting. Their approaches diverged in almost every aspect of preparation. De Niro, following the traditions of method acting, reportedly immersed himself completely in his characters' worlds, learning Russian, spending time with real Vietnam veterans, and insisting on using actual ammunition for Russian roulette scenes. Streep, drawing more from her classical training, built her characters through meticulous research and technical choices, focusing on accent, posture, and specific emotional triggers that she could access without living entirely in her character's psychological space. On screen, this clash of techniques created an electric unpredictability that served the deer hunter perfectly. Their scenes together have an almost dangerous quality, two perfectly matched talents approaching the same emotional truth from opposite directions. The film went on to win 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and established both actors as the preeminent talents of their generation. When they reunited years later for the romantic drama Falling in Love, 1984, sources close to the production claim the tension had only deepened as both had become more established in their respective approaches. According to the film's director, Ulu Grosbard, who later discussed the production in a film retrospective, getting the two actors to find common ground was one of the greatest challenges of his career. They respected each other enormously, he reportedly said, but they spoke different artistic languages. Behind the scenes, crew members described an atmosphere of professional respect but personal distance. According to a camera operator who worked on Falling in Love, De Niro and Streep rarely engaged in casual conversation between takes, instead retreating to separate spaces to maintain their individual preparation processes. There was no animosity, the source allegedly told a film historian, just a mutual recognition that they worked best when they didn't try to compromise their approaches. What makes this relationship particularly significant in Streep's career is that, according to those who have worked with her across multiple films, the tension with De Niro reportedly forced her to clarify and strengthen her own artistic philosophy. In a rare moment of candor during a film school master class years later, Streep allegedly referenced this dynamic obliquely, saying, "Early in my career, I encountered approaches to acting that were completely antithetical to my own. Those experiences didn't change my method, but they made me understand it more deeply and defend it more articulately." Despite these reported tensions, or perhaps because of them, the work Streep and De Niro created together stands among the most compelling in either of their filmographies. Their scenes in The Deer Hunter particularly are studied in film schools as master classes in different but equally valid approaches to screen acting. The creative friction, while personally challenging, produced undeniable artistic results. Significantly, while both actors have continued working prolifically into their later years, they have not appeared together in a film since 1996's Marvin's Room, despite numerous opportunities where they could have been cast opposite each other. Industry insiders have long speculated that this is not coincidental, but rather a mutual recognition that their creative differences, while productive in certain contexts, required enormous energy to navigate. Looking back across these 6 challenging relationships in Meryl Streep's career, a pattern emerges that tells us as much about her artistic evolution as it does about the nature of creative collaboration itself. The tensions weren't simply personality clashes, but fundamental differences in philosophy about the craft of acting and the responsibilities of performers to each other and to the project as a whole. With Hoffman, the issue was reportedly boundaries and respect. With Irons, it was allegedly the blurring of performance and reality. With Nicholson, sources point to contrasting levels of preparation and professionalism. With Brosnan, it was supposedly mismatched skill sets in a specific performance area. With Lohan, it was reportedly generational approaches to work ethic. And with De Niro, it was fundamentally different artistic methodologies. Each relationship challenged Streep in unique ways, and according to those who have worked with her across decades, each strengthened her resolve about her own approach to her craft. What distinguishes Streep from many of her contemporaries, according to directors and crew members who have worked with her repeatedly, is her to channel creative friction into better performances rather than allowing it to diminish her work. She doesn't waste energy on conflict, one longtime collaborator reportedly said. If there's tension with a co-star, she uses it if it serves the character and contains it if it doesn't. Today, at 76, Streep continues to work selectively, choosing projects and collaborators carefully. Those close to her career decisions suggest that her experiences with challenging co-stars have made her particularly appreciative of directors and actors who share her commitment to preparation, professionalism, and clear boundaries between performance and reality. Yet she has never limited herself to working only with those who approach acting exactly as she does, understanding that creative differences, while sometimes difficult to navigate, often produce the most compelling art. Perhaps the most telling aspect of these reported tensions is how rarely Streep herself has discussed them publicly. In an industry where personal grievances often become public spectacle, her discretion speaks to a philosophy that places the work above all else. Even when pressed in interviews about difficult collaborations, she typically redirects to praising what each actor brought to the project, focusing on results rather than process. This approach has earned her unprecedented respect in an industry not known for its reverence. Even those with whom she reportedly experienced tension generally speak of her with admiration, acknowledging her unmatched commitment to her craft and her unfailing professionalism, even in challenging circumstances. Meryl Streep's journey through Hollywood is a masterclass, not just in acting, but in navigating the complex interpersonal dynamics that make filmmaking both challenging and rewarding. The creative tensions that reportedly developed with these 6 actors, while sometimes difficult, ultimately contributed to some of the most memorable performances in cinema history. They remind us that great art isn't always born from harmony, but often emerges from the productive friction between different approaches, philosophies, and personalities. What do you think about these alleged tensions in Streep's career? Do you believe creative differences enhance performances or detract from them? Have you noticed the electric chemistry, positive or negative, between Streep and these co-stars in their films together? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Meryl Streep's career and the complex dynamics of creative collaboration, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more explorations of Hollywood legends and the stories behind your favorite films. Next week, we'll be examining another iconic actor whose career was shaped by unexpected rivalries and challenging partnerships. Until then, keep watching and remember, sometimes the most difficult collaborations create the most unforgettable art.